So we looked at 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves of paperback sci-fi in some genre. I'd call all those horizontal titles genre now. Simple Plan, I was kind of sad to pull out of that other fiction bookcase, but it is kind of literary. It's very existential. I'll think about it. But that other paperback shelf has kind of become a more, like, quote-unquote literary case. That said, I did like that A Simple Plan represented a time, too. And I like the book better than the movie. But then I put a George Eliot book that I really like the look of and want to read in there. I'll think about it. Anyway, now let's look at some large-size science fiction. I got rid of a lot of large-size science fiction at the last place. This is one of now 2 almost surviving shelves of long form, but it was like a case at the old place. A small case, but a case. What? It just has so happened that the books on top are books I love. Snow Crash, awesome. Post-cyberpunk sci-fi. It happens to be partly set in Soldotna, Alaska, where I lived. Ridley Walker, which I read with the AV Club's online, wrapped up in Books Book Club, and like got so much out of. It was like with all these PhD scholars that were just obsessing over the details of Ridley Walker. And it's written in a future dialect. It's set so far in the future that the nuclear destruction of most of the planet has become the new Garden of Eden story, with Adam and Eve's angel with the flaming sword transposed over it. But this is a really beautiful edition of Ridley Walker. That's his name because he tells riddles and he walks. But it's such a beautiful, this is one of the most profound philosophical sci-fi books I can think of. I've read a lot of Russell Hoban now, and I don't think his books are always a home run for me, but that book is an absolute masterpiece. Actually, his books are good. I just didn't love The Mouse and His Child. I read that one to my kids when I was like, but the Francis the Badger picture books are great that he wrote and co-wrote, and Ridley Walker is amazing. This was a big influence on the kids in Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, and also on a section of Cloud Atlas. But it's set in a future Kent County, England, I think, and gunpowder is just about to be rediscovered, and it's going to change everything. It's like an Iron Age, Stone Age that people live in generally. They dig old cars full of skeletons out of deep pits for their iron and, anything they can use. And that's like a job that a lot of people have. And people travel in tribes, and their only entertainment are Punch and Judy shows, and like this old art form that survives. And it's like little Gnostic plays in Punch and Judy form. The book's incredible. But Ridley Walker kind of has like second sight. He has like a really strong intuition, maybe even visions. And he sees that he's always wondering what happened to this great civilization that there's evidence of everywhere. Like one time he's in like a giant parking garage and there's like a bulldozer parked there, and he's just like, what was all this? And like he'd seen pictures of things flying and so on. And he's like, I know there was a different world. And then he realizes that the way that people messed it up was by the one little one eventually led to the one big one. Just like a trash pile might be a tenable solution for a little village, that one little one leads to the one big one when you get a big society. You got a different problem on your hands, like giant landfills. I guess that's Russell Hoban. Kind of looks like Roger Ebert. Am I wrong? Masterpiece, remarkable. Attempts the impossible and achieves a real achievement. The voice in this book is incredible. I love this book. I've read this book a couple times now. Here's an expanded edition with scholarly commentary. Don't love how this book looks, but it's all right. It's all right because the book is amazing. But it's why I keep 2 copies. I want a nice, pretty copy of this book that I love, and I want the scholarly extras. Snow Crash I read kind of recently. It really is amazing. It's the book that coined the term metaverse. Neil Stephenson's on his own wavelength. That book also includes a ton of research into the Tower of Babel and like the origins of language and all this really interesting stuff. And the idea of language as a culture shaping virus almost. Super interesting. And the idea that we could become digitally so interfaced that we could become sick from digital things. Neuromancer explores that too, but so does this. And it's very interesting. It's satirical on some levels, like, and yet even its satire is painted semi-believably. Like the mafia controls everything in the future, and there's not that many businesses. Like you would get pizza, that's one of the only foods, and so one of the only jobs is delivering pizza. But crime is so rampant that you have to like basically be a warrior to do it. It sounds zany, but like that stuff falls away pretty quick with some of these big ideas about language and these cool sci-fi approaches. Snow Crash is super interesting, and there's some good characters in it. There is an adult that hooks up with a 15-year-old, so, and there's like no comment on it in there. I know some people have big issues with that. It kind of fits the world and what's going on, but yeah, just, be aware. But no, I think Snow Crash is a very good book. And this is, I haven't read this whole one, but I've read, one of the books collected in it. This one right here, Pilgrimage, by Anna Henderson. In Gathering, The Complete People Stories. Can you hear my neighbor yelling white boy? His dog. It's a pretty good cover. It's a very desert cover. Also like 70s airbrushed van. I like it. Complete. These really, Pilgrimage is amazing. It's like an instant favorite when I read that book. This looks like, I wonder how it's presented, if it's different. It kind of looks like it's all put together into one. It has a very short introduction. I'll definitely be reading that and collecting more with Anna Henderson. I know there's another book of the people, and there's a collection of her short stories. But yeah, I'm just gonna be a completist. I want to read everything she wrote. She's like actually a really good, really lyrical, thoughtful, layered writer, layering her work with symbolism and meaning and feeling. Oh, the hard sci-fi Renaissance. I've read some, but I don't think all of this. I don't know. I remember reading it for a while. But, hard sci-fi is a hard distinction to make, like there's not one fantastical thing you couldn't find a hard sci-fi explanation for, really, And you could describe it in that way. But I think it's one of those, when you see it things, like nothing too fanciful and unlikely, like, I don't know. I think anything can be hard sci-fi. You could come up with really over-the-top aliens. I mean, the Alien franchise, for instance, that's ostensibly hard sci-fi, but it gets pretty, like, mythical in its scope over all the movies. I don't know. I guess a movie like The Lobster, that's not sci-fi. That's, like, fantasy. That's got a surrealist element thrown in there and kind of treated in a hard sci-fi way. The categories really do blur. But I love an anthology. Who's in here? Poul Anderson, Ted Chiang, Arthur C. Clarke, Kim Stanley Robinson. Those are the names I recognize. David Brin. Nancy Kress, I don't think I know. Werner Vinge, I don't really know. Oh, it's a good looking book. Oh, isn't that, who's it by? Orb. It's a mystical company that doesn't exist. Love it. Who else is in here? Anyone jump out at you? Guess I just don't know a lot of names of people because most of these are unfamiliar to me. It's like the time I played Beatles Trivial Pursuit with some old people, and I was like, I thought I knew tons of stuff about the Beatles. I've read like a few books about them. It was like so specific about producers and tracks and instrumentation and stuff. I'm like, what? There's always deeper levels you can go, and what seems obsessive in one friend group, is like amateur to others. Just got this one from Family Thrift, and look at it, it's so pretty. An Australian, that's so cool. I can't wait to read this. I hope it also seeks for like a diversity of viewpoints, because I'd like to hear what that's like. Like, I love Aboriginal Dreamtime mythology, so it'd be really interesting to hear Indigenous Australian science fiction, different sort of mythology. This book looks way cool. I'm like, wow, how did that come into my orbit? Apparently this is a series. I just pick up all Lilith or Octavia Butler. Contains the complete series, Dawn, Adulthood Rights, and Imago. Minor masterpiece. I was gonna put that on my book. Minor? You call me Minor? Of course she died. I wasn't laughing at that. I was laughing at the Minor thing. She died tragically young, I think. Or I switched multiverses. I heard a story and then I repeated it and then I was like, is that right? There, Octavia Butler looks like an ex-library book. Maybe we could get that off there. I hate you, Dax. I hate you. I hate you. I read her Seed to Harvest cycle, 4 books that she wrote in opposite order that you're supposed to read them. She wanted the best to be first. I'm like, that's an interesting experiment. But it's like about like a Bene Gesserit family, kind of like a breeding experiment across the ages to bring out these special abilities in people. That's a crazy book. Way captivating. Put my head in it for a long time. She's definitely a good sci-fi writer who writes interesting stuff. In the company of Ursula K. Le Guin, for sure, and all the top ones, Ray Bradbury, etc. Let's see what we have here. Poul Anderson, Brainwave, his enduring masterpiece. Dang. Yeah, you can get me to read most things if you put that on the cover, unless it's like some horrible politician that I hate or something. His enduring masterpiece. I don't want to read that. Poul Anderson's most famous single novel. Encyclopedia of Science Fiction. That's a pretty funny idea. The quote you put on the back is a quote. It's just like a fact. Greatest masterpiece by the science fiction grandmaster. I wonder if he had a series that was more famous. Oh, here's a cool idea. For millions of years, the part of the galaxy containing our solar system is moving through a vast force field whose effect has been to inhibit certain electromagnetic and electrochemical processes and thus certain neurotic functions. When Earth escapes the inhibiting field, synapse speed immediately increases, causing a rise in intelligence, which results in a transfigured humanity reaching for the stars, leaving behind less intelligent humans and animal life forms. Brainwave is a transcendent look at the possible effects of enhanced human intelligence. Anderson has produced more milestones in contemporary science fiction fantasy than any one man is entitled to. Stephen R. Reynolds. Few science fiction novels have revealed more skill simultaneously in scientific speculation and in fictional warmth and feeling. Well, it looks cool. It's a cool edition. Okay, so Welcome to Night Vale is a podcast about this like creepy town, creepy desert town. I think it's very Albuquerque-like. And in the early days of my Twitter usage, I was really good Twitter friends with the Night Vale people, and I always retweeted them, and they always retweeted me. Back when I wrote New Mexico News, this newspaper of like news stories turned into just 3 lines. It began as a Twitter feed, and it got picked up by a record label, turned into a newspaper. It was the whole thing. Got a few of them here still. New Mexico News. A couple fought outside in Silver City. Someone threw a phone at a woman. A car hit a person and kept on going. During all, the sky, a haze. Wearing only boxers, an Espanola man used a bar to break every window of his father's trailer. Then he picked up an axe and ran toward it. In southwestern New Mexico, everything is still on fire. Tuesday night in Clovis, and someone called the police to say the same trailer that was on fire last week is on fire again. Please hurry. Clovis in a car with its wires cut and a stray covered in ticks and a hay pile on fire. 2 men knocking, and then they just stood there. The Department of Homeland Security will meet with exotic dancers and adult club owners in Albuquerque about how to best fight sex trafficking. Adams Vasquez of Loving has just won a $250,000 lottery ticket jackpot. She is excited to use the money to leave town. Maybe because they've just had pups, the coyotes around Las Cruces seem to be getting bolder, chasing dogs, following people in packs. 4 billion years ago, the earth all fire, everything molten, everything chaos, cooling only slowly. Now, over 338 square miles, a return. Valencia County Reserve Deputy 28 has been charged. Oh, jeez, it's getting dark. Thought I was filming. I'm like, did I read any of these? I read like this whole column. Well, here's when I lived. Far up the Sandias, the debris of a 1955 plane crash. Lower among rocks, owls. On the road away, hikers gated it, sitting down too late. Yeah, we got locked in with our car behind a gate because it took us so long to get down from this plane crash. This is back when I was in grad school. I would just write things up that I observed just like they were news stories, because why not? Mixed them in. A drunken man on an Albuquerque street slurring at cars in the dark. I'm a Republican for Obama. I'm not voting for him, but hey, you. Yeah, that was one of the ones that I observed. And then here Luke Hussick has drawn art for it. Mark Bayer also illustrated some of these. He's got such a unique style. Reported 21st September 2012. Breakfast on Tuesday in Quake County's House School District will be a sausage on a stick, a kind of cereal, some muffins, juice, and milk. Great. Like you're getting sidetracked. Welcome to Night Vale. So, honestly, a book that's a spin-off of a fictional podcast should have no right to be this great. But this, I feel like, is a modern classic. It's so good. It's so funny and strange and a really cool story set in a really unique world. Yeah, it's a world that was previously established on a podcast, but that world was polished on that podcast and over many episodes by actors, etc. And so the world presented here was shaped by all these people. However, this book, which is written by the two creators of Welcome to Night Vale, who I've had many interactions with on Twitter and in messages. They're super cool people and deserve all the success they've had. I even went to a live event when they came to town here, but then I got swept away in a tide of people and didn't go backstage to meet them. Should have made more of an effort. Sorry, guys. I was with a bunch of people, and it was just... everyone was fine with being swept away. I'm like, but I want to meet them. I've talked to them online. Yeah. Still, an enjoyable evening. And I used to really listen to this podcast a lot. I don't really listen to any podcasts anymore, but I will get back to it at some point. Been more of a YouTube video lecture guy lately. And listening to a lot of people talk about books and writing. Pretty good cover, too. Good modern cover. I like it. I think this is an advanced reading copy, though, I got from when I worked at Bookworks. I looked out because I think 3 people wanted this. But there's really interesting things. In this book, there's a pawn shop owner whose kid is an involuntary shapeshifter, and she's stuck in a time loop. Everyone just knows it, that she is. And some really far out stuff here. This is I don't know. You could call it zany, but it's pretty imaginative and vivid and funny. And these guys are witty. For a long time, even more than Night Vale, the podcast, I loved Night Vale, the Twitter feed. The Twitter feed was hilarious. I mean, and quotable. I still think of so many lines from it. One's this is just a reminder that at your most basic, fundamental level, you are indistinguishable from a forest fire. Whoa. Sheesh, I keep thinking I'm filming and then I'm not. This video's going to be 30 seconds long. I'm a moron. There was talk about this becoming an FX TV series, and I don't know what happened with that. That'd be cool. A movie would be cool. Guillermo del Toro should direct a movie of it or something. It's a pretty great world, and it's often funny. And it's strange, and there's there's stuff in it where I'm well, I've never heard of that anywhere else. And anyway, yeah, modern classic. Now I think there are a few Night Vale books. I've not kept up. Sometimes I do that with fandoms. I burn real bright with them for a while, and then I just, life gets away from me. When you're broke, you're not thinking about podcasts, and I've had some chapters of that sort of thing. Or when your house is getting shot or whatever. My son says, my friends all think I have great dad lore. I'm I've never been prouder. Thanks. The secret is have seizures when you're a little kid and a stroke when you're a teenager and just be a weirdo. Just remember, you don't need people. You have books. The books are your friends. The books won't ever turn on you. The books won't tell lies about you. Books won't sell your credit card numbers to third parties. Yeah, that New Mexico news that I just wrote. I wrote one about this sculptor who made a sculpture for outside of a library, and he dedicated it to books. And then in what I wrote, I said, "Thanks," said a lot of books because it's a word they contain. Made me laugh. There's another copy of the Martian Chronicles. I see a nice copy of the Martian Chronicles, I think. Yeah, sure. You can come live with me. Come on, get in the car. Don't be afraid. And just where you can sleep. Harper Perennial. They make some nice large-sized paperbacks. Though in general, I lament the move away from the little handheld paperbacks. Even as my eyesight gets worse. I love a trade paperback. An apotheosis of the book form. But maybe this is even better. I don't know. You just can't put it in your pocket in the same way. But you can't put every paperback in your pocket either. That's true. I gotta say, interviews with Ray Bradbury, are you even the same person? Is Walter Matthau playing you right now? I'm saying he seems like a grumpy old guy. One of those interviewees like Gene Wilder that's always like, problem today is too much swearing. Okay. There's a guy doing fentanyl 5 feet away from us, but okay, swearing. Go on. Freewheeling vehicle. Yeah, Cat's Cradle's pretty wild. This is one of the earliest Vonnegut's I read. And I did think it was cool. As I've said before, I was challenged by its unreligiousness. Because I was like that young. I was like still coming out of that mindset. I believe this work may be blasphemous. Perhaps a tool of the devil. No, not that far, but it was unsettling a little. Because there's like a monk satirizing religion, and he's as ridiculous as everybody else. This is a great classic sci-fi work from like the 50s. And there's a part where they drive on Route 66 across America after most humans have died. Where are the bodies? It's like everyone's just died and there's no bodies. That's a very strange thing. So you get all these eerie landscapes. You know, you can invent the lore, I suppose. They dried up and blew away. Doesn't really fit the timeline. The guy's only in a cabin for like a week, suffering from a snake bite that makes him immune to whatever is killing the rest of the planet. And then he comes out and he finds like, maybe this is a 40s book, because he finds like a post-World War II article. And it's like, the apocalypse is here. And he's like the last person for a long time. Stephen King, I think, has said that he based The Stand directly on this book. The Stand is kind of like a remake of sorts of this. I mean, it's its own thing. Much bigger book, for one thing. A little like Robinson Crusoe, and it has the same kind of fascination. But this is a pretty powerful book, full of cool ideas, many parts of which I remember. Like, it's got a few set pieces and stuff. It's got some period attitudes and stuff like that. There's this one part where he realizes that the woman he loves is, like, not just all white. She's, like, partly African-American. And he says something so weird. He's like, perhaps someday we'll be able to care about such things again, but for now, we must live as we are. And it's like, is that supposed to be some inspiring message? You just made it sound like you can't wait for people to be able to be racist again. So, what's going on? What? Okay, I own this because it has one of my favorite sci-fi stories ever in it. Also, this is a beautiful book. The cover's from a different story that's also good, about a vampire robot that preys on the energy of other robots. Zelazny is wild sometimes. He's got crazy ideas. My gosh, this cover is amazing. I really do want to get a vehicle and airbrush this on it. Last Defender of Camelot, man. I made this van just to show the world. But if you get a chance, read the story in here called For a Breath I Tarry. The story of Frost, the machine that controls the Northern Hemisphere. For 10,000 years, Frost has been aware of every snowflake that falls, yet he is flawed. During his creation, a solar flare afflicted his circuitry. He's like a 40-foot gelatinous cube that flies around. He's the most unlikely character ever. The beginning of Wall-E kind of borrows heavily from the story of Frost, but this story goes to such a more interesting place. And this book is the reason why I also own the poetry book, A Shropshire Lad, because it's quoted in this book. And the characters find a copy of it in the far, far future. A Shropshire Lad. Oh, I might not have survived the purge. I thought this was it, but no. A Shropshire Lad, where are you? Shropshire, probably, now that I think about it. Look what Zelazny says. This is my favorite novelette. Yeah, the novelette was a form they tried to get to take off in sci-fi for a while. Longer than a short story, shorter than a novella. I would have included it in my Doubleday collection with the long title and the dead fish in the dust jacket, except that as with Comes Now, the Power, I didn't have a copy when I was assembling that one. I love the story. It's wild. It goes crazy places. You should read it. Liminal Spaces has a good video about it. But just read it. It's so awesome. Find it. You can find it online. That's another work I'd love to adapt. Yeah. Oh man, Zelazny rocks. 1980 by the Amber Corporation. You know, this might be a first edition collection that I got because I wanted For a Breath I Tarry so bad. It's very rare to find a standalone copy of For a Breath I Tarry. Look, it's originally from 1966, New World Science Fiction. Maybe I'll obsess over that one and get every version of it, including the original magazine. That could be fun. Someday. First Basics. Beautiful edition of Galapagos. A really cool, high-concept one from Kurt Vonnegut. A million years of evolution after a shipwreck in 1986 in the Galapagos Islands. Looked at this in another video, but this is probably my favorite Jack Williamson. It's so good, and he wrote it when he was like 98. His first published stories were in the 1920s, and this was written in the early 2000s. And it's such a cool idea. Earth has been so damaged and destroyed by, I think, like a meteor impact. And humans have gone extinct, but on the moon there's this clone bank of clones that can be employed to take care of things. And they're woken up at long intervals to see how things are going. And there are terraforming efforts happening on Earth. And like robotic and nanotech and stuff. But these clones who maintain their memory across their different forms, and so are like these really fascinating immortal beings. It's so cool. It's such a good book. It's really interesting. It is like peak sci-fi, and it would make an amazing movie. Jack Williamson is a true sci-fi great that never gets the credit that many others do. He's just from little old Portales, New Mexico. But he was a high thinking mind and brought really cool things to sci-fi. And he evolved with sci-fi. He has sci-fi that kind of reflects every chapter of sci-fi in his life. He wasn't still writing golden age spaceship yarns, in the 90s, 80s and 90s. How to live in a science fictional universe. I've heard really good things about this. Sci-fi, also literary. Starts out a little artful. There's just enough space inside here for one person to live indefinitely, or at least that's what the operation manual says. User can survive inside the TM-31 recreational time travel device in isolation for an indefinite period of time. I'm not totally sure what that means. Already hooking me from the beginning. I've long had an idea for a time travel story of people traveling to all the great live shows in rock history. And I don't know if I'll ever write that one. A mix of music writing and sci-fi and comedy was how I pictured it. I guess it's a little Bill and Ted, but it would be like really like scholarly around these specific events, the way I was thinking it. Here's another Walter John Williams book. Guy who wrote Hardwired. Look at this cover. What? Like, if you've never read sci-fi, but you see this cover, you might be like, maybe I'll read this. Like, if you showed this to some, like, great-grandmother who only read novelizations of Murder, She Wrote, even she would probably be like, well, I'm intrigued. Because that cover's crazy. What's going on here? And it's kind of beautiful. A balanced color palette with, like, the green and the orange. It's great. I think I paid big money for this one, even though it's got... No, I think I got this through Paperback Swap back in the day. Yep. It's weird. I just told myself like 3 different stories of its origin, but I'm pretty sure I got it from Paperback Swap. Pretty. Oh, and I got it from my New Mexico books. I must have read this then. Tocha, New Mexico. Yeah, I kind of remember this maybe. Yeah, I read a bunch that I didn't keep. The Life and Death and Rebirth of Billy the Kid. Walter John Williams is a writer people should know more. If you're into cyberpunk at all, he should really be one of the main names you talk about. The cyberpunk I care about is this, Walter John Williams, Neuromancer, so William Gibson, The Matrix, I guess. I like those movies. The Transmetropolitan graphic novels. I love those, all of them. Maybe that's the most. Sure, the Blade Runner movies, though I'm not a super fan. I just think they're good. Oh, here's another good anthology. I love when the genres have extreme applied to them. Extreme fantasy is interesting too. Imagine you're a paint blob. You're a cartoon character. I have the extreme fantasy one somewhere, I think. I think these are remnants of Hastings back in the day. We had this great chain in the West called Hastings that was like the last place you could rent videos, DVDs. I remember renting The Wire there. Breaking Bad. And anyway, they would always have sale cart sales, and sometimes I would get the most amazing stuff. And that might be where these are from. I think this one's from UNM Bookstore, actually, but this is from Hastings, I think. Nobody cares. We need to get to the bottom of this. Which one was from Hastings and which one was from the bookstore? But I think there's some far out stuff in both of these. And I don't know. My favorite thing in extreme sci-fi is huge amounts of time. I just love huge amounts of time. Like, that really expands my mind in a cool way, like thinking about rocks does. And in fantasy, it's kind of cool to really, I don't know, think the most extreme thoughts possible. I hope this doesn't disappoint. I wonder what's in there. This has one that I really like. When a cartoon character becomes aware of his readers. I read all these. In a world of darkness where any concept of light means death. For a man who decides to live all ages at once. When an occult experiment to recreate the crucifixion goes wrong. Contributors include Orson Scott Card. Do we want your kind of extreme? Here's the extreme sci-fi list. When inanimate objects are given the gift of life. When there's an error in the universe and it tries to correct itself. When we break out of the universe and discover the creator. When a machine creates a choice of alternate Christ. When murder is committed in virtual reality. When an immortal ventures to the end of time. Yeah, I should keep these books together. Because they're friends. They're best friends, and they're in love. They're going to get married. Oh, they're cuddling. I couldn't break you two apart. What am I, a monster? This was a gift, and what a beautiful book. Okay. Sometimes I make digs at modern book design, but then a book like this comes along, and it's like, no, you're all right, actually. This is a beautiful freaking book. Ben Marcus likes it. Jonathan Franzen likes it. Lydia Davis likes it. All these people think it's good. It's Ben Marcus, eh? Concocting fictions of perfect strangeness, most of them no more than a page long. Yeah, that's the strange thing about these stories. Beautiful book. I mean, what? It's got a romantic inscription. It's now bittersweet. Life is so strange. But it's an opportunity to suffer. No, I mean, yeah, that too. It's so weird that I'm working at the front desk of my old high school and my daughter's old high school and a high school that I've taught at. I'm stuck in a cosmic whirlpool in an eddy of my own life. Why can't I escape my high school? I'm literally like a character in the show Community and their community college. It's a pretty good title. This is about the body, the mind, the soul, the world, time, and fate. 1990. Well, I don't know much about Diane Williams, but when your book looks this good and Ben Marcus likes it, and Lydia Davis likes it, and Jonathan Franzen seems to like it, well, then I'll give it a chance. This concludes a shelf of large sci-fi. But there's still more. I should share this graph of my viewership and how it plummets when I start talking about sci-fi. It's kind of funny. It's not as popular, apparently. And if I had a graphic novel section, that would be similar, I think. There's still like certain stigmas against certain kinds of writing in the literary community. But I'm telling you, like, people are missing out. Like, I remember taking a poetry class with the poet Diane Teal, and I was telling her about Philip K. Dick plots and how good Philip K. Dick books are. And she was like leaning in. She was so interested, because the themes were similar to ones that she was talking about. But it's like there's all these corners of literature that like people in this or that part of academia just never even are aware of it or don't seek it out. Like, it's not, I don't know. But graphic works are awesome. I mean, people like read outside your genre and just create your own canon, you know? They've been restored to the bosom of their families. It's the kind of stuff people used to say. All right, I'll probably do one more video on large size sci-fi, fantasy, etc. and one on those books down in the corner that are about sci-fi. That's kind of a different discussion. And then I was thinking I'd look at the antique books. And then maybe half of this case of nonfiction. Just that side. And then science. Southwest maybe. Then nonfiction again. Then maybe New Mexico. Then kids' books. There's these chapter books. But that also includes fairy tales and stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in this one. And I will read these kitties like scrying tea in the bottom of a cup. The future is bright, folks. Look at them. Maybe I'll even look at all these picture books of the kids. No, definitely should. Why not? That's how YouTube works, right? You build up all your followers and then you get rid of them all by switching content gear. That's just going to be one of the things with this channel is like, how can this channel continue to exist? What am I even going to talk about? I'll find stuff. I've been talking about books my whole life, and I'll be talking about books my whole life. And I think like one of my key artistic natural philosophies is push past natural stopping points. Interesting stuff always happens as you just explore. I like to wade in the maximalist swamps. All right, folks. So we looked at some sci-fi. I hung out. I hung out with my neighbors today. That was fun. They invited me over, and they were playing like really good dance music and played a card game. And I kept winning even though I had no idea of the rules. I'm pretty sure the rules were like Calvin ball. Kept being like, no, you can't play that one because it's not a spade. I'm like, how is it a spade? It's a diamond. No, because we made it a spade last term. I'm like, you can't play the red because it's not a joker. I'm like, this is like Calvin ball, but as a card game. You're just making this up. But it was very funny. And then it was very frustrating to them because I just kept winning. And I mean, I was on a team with another person. He was happy. But it was so funny. Anyway, I'm like, maybe I should go buy a lottery ticket because I'm just like stumbling into luck or something. You know, it's hard to recommend just a few books from this case because there's so many good ones here. But if I had to, I know that Terraforming Earth is awesome and kind of unknown. It covers lots of time, which I love in a sci-fi story. It's such a cool thing for the brain. Ridley Walker is art with so much heart and a great post-apocalyptic sci-fi world. If you like Mad Max, if you like, I don't know, it's beyond Mad Max. It's great. And it did influence Mad Max 3, particularly how those kids talk. I just feel like this book is yet to take the world by storm, and it needs to. It needs to be brought back into print, adapted into a great show or a great movie series or something. It's like the world needs these books. They're like they're not just good sci-fi, but they're like empowering, and they fill you with triumph of the human spirit and positivity and love and community. They're like great books. The introduction says she gets criticized for mawkishness. Give me a break. You mean sincerity? Like, I can't imagine criticizing these works. They're beautiful, and it makes so much sense that she was a teacher for a long time. Must have been a good one. Probably better than me. I get fed up with these kids. Just kidding. No, not kidding. Just kidding. Or am I? It depends who's watching this. Do you employ me? But I'd like to see a renaissance of love for Zena Henderson. Just I couldn't believe how much just reading that one book that's collected in here hit me. If I'd had the the volume at hand the next day, I would have read it. But I read it this summer when I was a bit peripatetic. A camp job and finding a place right afterward. For a Breath I Tarry. It's special. It's very, very special. You could go watch that Liminal Spaces video on it, but really just read it. It's amazing. No, I mean, or watch the video, whatever. For a Breath I Tarry by Roger Zelazny. Should live on. Should be read, not forgotten. I've been reading, what's it called? Housemaid of Dawn. I'm trying to recall it without going to look for it. Who wrote it? He's a Native American author from the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma. Has lived in New Mexico. Squirrel's got a problem with him for some reason. Squirrel, you're not racist, are you? You better not be racist, Kitty. I've been reading this book by Ann Scott Momaday. It's so good. No, Squirrel's not racist. She loves all humans that pet her. You could say she's bigoted against humans that don't pet her, though. Same with Prismo. Priscilla's purr has gotten stronger as she's gotten older. She used to have a very feeble, faint purr. Look at that beautiful face. Oh my goodness. I must paint you. Oh. This cat's so full of love. She's so sweet. So I'm like 120 pages into this. It's very good. I keep not having a ton of time to read. Then I have time, but then I don't use it to read. I write, or I'll tell you, I'm getting the best comments on my channel lately. I'm just like, what nice people follow this channel. You know, I remember going to an Augustine Burroughs literary event when I was working for Bookworks? It might have been. And just being like, I don't think I'm in this crowd of people that are just like crying at his every word. I'm like, but my brand of weird might find my people, you know? Like, it kind of was encouraging to me that, like, if you just reach out on your own particular frequencies in your life, you know, you'll probably find people that, like, you resonate with, you know? And so I don't know, maybe things like YouTube are cool for that because we select through our interests and we find people that share those interests. And it's like when you breed foxes to be domestic, their ears fall down and other traits come into it. You know? So when you find people that share your interests, there's also other shared traits. What am I saying? Bunch of bloody nonsense. Alrighty, well. Kind of excited to read The Secret Sharer again too in March. I'm going to do that every month this year. I'm going to get so much out of it. I'm going to learn some learnings. You meet a cat on the road. She presents you with 2 items. A crumpled up piece of paper and a brush. Which will you choose? Grismo, people want to know what you think about the Oscars. What did you think of the Oscars? What do you think of the accusations of category fraud? Were people nominated for supporting roles that should not have been nominated for supporting roles because they were in so much of their films? And they won, and they had larger studio backing? Here's something crazy. My neighbor said they see my cats go outside all the time. I'm like, that's impossible. He's like, yeah, they go out every night. So my cats are like the cat in Coraline and can teleport, apparently. I think what they're seeing are other cats eating the food on our porch. Always feed the porch kitties. That was one of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt feed the porch kitties. Really, it's like that movie Tourist Trap. We turn them into statues. All right, well, you know, like I've said before, these videos make talking to myself feel like less insane, less pathetically lonely. Does it though, Mike? Oh. People I hiked across the country with back in the day. That's a photo that was in Backpacker magazine. That's why it has a caption. Uh-huh. My great kiddo Willow. These photos span my whole life, and we're haunting at different locations. There's one there from when I was like 8 or 9. There's one there from when I was in my late teens, early 20s. Okay, not my whole life. First half of my life. That one's Austria. When I was a little kid, sometimes you just like stay at a hotel that's also used to be a castle, and it's a castle. And at this one, I just like explored all around the walls and the grounds of this old castle. It was so cool because my dad would have to travel all over for his church work. And I remember being on the side of this wall and I like almost fell and died. And afterward I was like so full of like that feeling of danger. I'm like, I can't really tell my dad that I almost died falling off a wall. I think that was in Alaska during the off season when all the boats were beached. That was a significant campsite on the hike across the country near Philadelphia. That was the piece of desert I lived in 2002 in Apache County, Arizona, with its Aeromotor windmill from 1954. And that's a view out of this little shed behind my parents' house that was all fixed up into a guest bedroom that I lived in with my first wife and baby daughter for a little while my mom was dying of kidney failure. And it's the same shed, incidentally, that before it was fixed up, I read The Island of Dr. Moreau and then stepped on a 2x4 with 2 nails sticking out of it. like a decade before. Funny how you collect times and places as you move through life, you know? When I first found these photos in a box, I was like, whoa. Each one of them gave me like an impact, so I put them together into one thing. Been there ever since. Yeah, obviously. This is some great art from my son Hagen when he was in the single digits. A narwhal. Narwhal's fighting with a unicorn. Hagen, you're a genius. This kid has got such a mind for like engineering and architecture and physics and higher math and stuff. But every time he does art, I'm like, dude, you got that delightful je ne sais quoi that all the best art has. And many of his stuff is like almost Bauhaus adjacent with its grids and lines and exactitudes. Good old Hagen, named after the ghost town. For many years, the ghost town of Hagen obsessed my life. And then once Hagen was born, he became the Hagen in my life. Barely ever went out to the ghost town again. Crazy. Hagen means strong defense in German, but in Gaelic it means enlightened one. The ghost town was named after a Pittsburgh steel magnate, so probably of German descent, so strong defense makes more sense. And that's, my son plays right rear defense when he plays soccer. He plays for Academy School. It's like a fancy schmancy private school, but he goes on a scholarship and hangs out with rich people. It's kind of wild. My daughter Anodyne says, "You're a rich kid in a poor family," to Hagen. From a very young age, he was like, "I'm going to work a job all the time and save my money." And he had a car by the time he was like 15 before he had a license. He'd already bought it. I mean, this kid, I'm like, can I borrow some of that? Get up and go. He's also a gym rat, works out like crazy. He's like a huge, strong guy now. Crazy, maybe a little taller than me. So hopefully I can use him to rough people up if anyone ever gives me any crap. Come on, boy, got a job. We did have some conversations about such things when our house kept getting attacked. 2022 on, shot up and windows smashed and tires slashed. Ugh. When Us Three came here and I saw them in concert back in the 90s, they rapped, "We like Albuquerque" because it rhymes with Us Three. But during these darker times, I thought, that's not enough, Us Three. It's not enough. We could move to Cincinnati and still get that. Anyway, I love some of the art my kids have made. I mean, so much of it is just brilliant. They all have like natural gifts. And all the girls have been great songwriters. Anyway, I think parents always end up being fans of their kids, but it helps if your kids like make it easy, you know? That's the ghost town that Hagen was named after. That's the old mercantile. Built by famed Hispanic architect Abenicio Salazar. If you want to see his work, you can just go to Bernalillo. There's a whole historic district town north of Albuquerque. That was the largest adobe building in the Southwest at the time. It's huge mercantile with a basement, coal cellar, multi-story. They had dances in there. They had a post office. They had all kinds of goods. Many of the goods went to the store in Golden, New Mexico, and some can still be seen under a glass counter there when that failed. And then two brothers, the Gonzalez brothers, dismantled much of the town during World War II for supplies for the war effort. Hagen is very close to Tonke, where all these historic bricks came from. It's on the same dirt road, La Madera Road. Read my article, Road to Somewhere, at alibi.com if you live in New Mexico and would like to explore a really cool place. But it's gotten really harder to explore. You better be respectful if you go out there. I don't want to unleash any jerks on that wreck walls or wreck his history out there, you know. You know, I used to always say about David Lynch that I appreciated his work for its realism. I'll keep saying it. Person's work lives on. But, because the world is strange. And I think I appreciate sci-fi for its realism, too. Because these visions of far futures, they're realities that we live with, and somebody's spelling them out. These possibilities are realities that we live with. You know what I'm saying? Like, something like Dune could happen. That's like a totally, like, that is such a well thought out story. The only really far out element in that story is the sandworms, and maybe that could be genetically created, you know? And, but how Earth cultures become one culture over countless time and split off into other cultures after they're in space. That's one area where the Lynch movie differs from the Dune books. Like, it has really inhuman species in the Lynch movie. Some fans had a problem with that, but heck, if you read All Tomorrows or listen to it, which one comment on this channel suggested that All Tomorrows was not that interesting to listen to, but I think the illustrations really help. Recommend that. Cool commentary. Well, here we are yet again on the occasion of me losing my train of thought. That's fine because this video is already 50 minutes long. These videos are getting long sometimes, but well, whatever. No one has to watch them. And you know, we're covering all the books, whether it's shorter videos or longer videos. Why not? All right. In other news today, I tried to help a dog, but the dog didn't need help. And then I broke a plate. What does it mean? All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Hope your lives are good. Appreciate you all being out there. Squirrel says goodnight.